What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Raw Real Podcast. We are your hosts. With me, as always, is Sexy Lex Lanson, and I'm Shane the Pain. We came to educate, and we came to entertain.
Let's do it.
How you doing this week, Lex?
It's been a busy week, my friend.
It's been a busy week, and a lot has gone on, man. We've got a lot to cover.
Dude, there's too much going on to keep up with.
I know. It just seems like every day is something new, right?
It's like, what do they call it? The fire hose of information.
It's incredible.
Never
It's
stops.
incredible. I want to start the evening off, ladies and gentlemen, by thanking each and every one of you, our viewers and supporters, who have followed us throughout this journey since early March of 2023. I am proud to announce that in the last 60 days, Lex, we have accumulated 1 million views on TikTok. And I just want to say, I mean, I know that might not be a huge number to some of the other
big.
content creators out there,
It's
but
big.
it's our first million. I'm super happy about it. And I'm super thankful for all the support that you've been giving to us.
Dude, 1 million is 1 million.
1 million is 1 million, man. 1 million pairs of 2 million eyes have been looking at our videos.
Yeah, that's wild.
That's crazy. Thank you so very much. We sincerely appreciate it. And we hope to continue moving forward with providing even more content and hopefully longer form content as well, so that we can really dive deep into the topics that we're introducing. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's our first segment of the evening. It's What's Trending. And Lex, man, I don't know how to say this, but Canada took a blow. They took a heavy blow last week.
Fill me in, brother.
And it rolled into this week. So for any of you who have been watching the news, the Speaker of the House of Commons basically introduced a war veteran, and I think that's the nicest way for me to put it, who was fighting for the enemy. And I'm just going to say it, guys. They honored a Notsee war veteran in our Parliment, House of Commons. And I got a lot to say about this, but I want to start off by asking you, Lex, did you hear the news and how did you react to it?
I heard it in passing. I heard it in passing, and honestly, when I heard the news, I wasn't surprised, man.
Why not?
I just rewind a few years ago when in the U.S. when Robert Byrd, who was like the Grand Master, high-ranking Ku Klux Klan member, passed away. There were some members of the Democratic Party who attended his funeral and delivered a eulogy.
Really?
Yeah, you could look that up, man. It's pretty wild, you know. And so when I hear this, it's just like, okay, again, another one.
Isn't it extremely disappointing?
It is.
You know, it feels as though that we're starting to forget the past, right? And ladies and gentlemen, World War II is something you don't want to forget,
No.
all right? And the atrocities that happened there, the genocide that happened amongst the Jewish community, and you know, when I heard, you know, let's start off by giving some context for those of you who aren't aware. Yaroslav Hunk was invited to the House of Commons by the Speaker of the House, Anthony Rada. And this individual lived in his riding in Ontario, and they commemorated him as a Canadian hero, Ukrainian hero, for his participation in the war fighting against the Russians. I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm not the most educated individual out there. But when I heard them say that he was fighting against the Russians, I immediately said, what side was he fighting on? Because there's only one side that was fighting against the Russians.
Absolutely.
Right? What I'm disappointed about as well is the reaction by our government. And although, you know, Anthony Rada did take responsibility, he did take accountability for inviting this member into the parliament during the time when Zelensky was also visiting the parliament.
Yeah, it's a big conflict of interest.
It's not just it's not that it's a conflict of interest. It's that you have a foreign national leader, all right, in your government building. You are supposed to have the most stringent safeguards all right, to ensure the safety of everybody in that room, right? And it just feels as though that the process of checks and balances wasn't properly executed. You know, they should have done background checks on everybody that walks in, right? Anybody can be invited, all right, and you can come in as a guest, but you need to be vetted before you walk in there because
So was a situation that they did not do a background check on this individual beforehand, and like kind of like hindsight's 2020.
Exactly. That's what it appears like. Now, here's what I'm disappointed in. Number one, Trudeau hadn't made a statement until 4 days or 5 days after the incident had happened. He had actually been absent from the House for the first 2 days of the week, so there was no opportunity for him to address the matter. What's even more disturbing is one of the Liberal MPs stood up in front of the House and asked to pass a vote to strike this incident from public record and media. That is extremely concerning to me.
It's concerning and it's also hypocritical.
Very much
Because
so.
I mean, they're inviting this, this former Nazi member, right, into House of Commons and honoring him. But it's like you rewind time to what was it, February 2022, where the Freedom Convoy took place?
Yes.
2021.
I think it was 2021. Yeah.
The Canadian government, the Liberal Party, is condemning it as a white nationalist Nazi movement, right? And then like fast forward 2 years later, you're honoring this former SS member. It's very hypocritical.
It is. And you know what Justin Trudeau's initial statement was? I'm going to pull it up here. But he said something to the effect of, we're trying to combat Russian misinformation and disinformation. What did Russia have anything to do
how does it correlate
with allowing this person into our House of Parliament?
Well, it just seems like a good scapegoat, right?
It's a deflection.
Yeah, it
right?
really is.
It's to try and take away accountability from the gaffe that you made. Yeah. And it's a pretty big gaffe, ladies and gentlemen. It's huge. Yeah. This should have never happened. Do you think that this hurts the Liberal Party's reputation?
It's not good. I mean, rewind 10 years ago, I think it would have severely hurt their party. But now it's just, the news cycle is so fast, people are going to forget it in like no time.
And here's the thing that I'm also disappointed in, Lex, is the party leader opposition, all right, and Pierre Poilievre, with his focus being on the impact this had on Zelensky and the Ukraine and the relationship that we have with them, and less about the impact on the Jewish community in Canada and the Jewish community around the world. It seems as though he's just taking an opportunity to politicize this, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that's an appropriate move?
I mean, these politicians, man, I don't know if there's any bar that they're too afraid to climb under just to get, votes. And whatever vote or whatever polls they hurt in the process, they pull some other stunt in the future to try and, rectify that or make up for it. I feel like there's no bar they're willing to not climb underneath.
Yeah. It kind of feels like in the House of Commons today, it kind of feels like school ground fighting or playground fighting.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's not
is.
an adult conversation anymore. It's throwing accusations at each other.
And in a sense where it's like they're capitalizing off like an opportunity without any foresight, right, into the future. It's just like, we'll patch it up later as we move along, right?
Absolutely.
So I feel like these things are not like the repercussions and the consequences are not like factored in. They seem to be very impulsive, right? Because it's like they invite this guy in and it's like, oops, what do we do? And it's the same song and dance over and over. They gaff all the time.
All the time. And I'm kind of tired of it, to be quite honest with you. I think we need to be, our politicians and our leaders and our PMs, they need to be much more diligent at the job that they're doing.
No, they're happy with the leniency that we give them too, right?
Of course.
We cut them way too much slack, and we've been cutting them way too much slack.
You know what? And that's a great point because, my father and my grandfather always made it a point to write letters to their MPs when they weren't happy with some of the policies or decisions that were being made. Lex, I've never written a letter to my local MP or to anybody in politics. It's something that I think we should be encouraging the younger voters to do. And you've got a young son, and again, he's not a voting age, but I think it's time to start introducing the importance of voting and how to become an intelligent voter. Because I find young voters aren't necessarily very intelligent when it comes to making those decisions. I myself voted for Justin Trudeau solely for the fact that he was going to legalize marijuana and the sale of marijuana, right? And so you can tell that me as a young voter, I was making poor choices and poor decisions as a voter, and I wasn't really focusing on the real issues, all right, and the future of our country.
Right.
So I think we need to do a better job at that. But here's a development in the story, Lex, is that the Polish education minister has begun taking steps to extradite Yaroslav Hunk from Canada so that he can be prosecuted for his crimes against the Polish nation or against people in Poland or the Polish community, Jewish Polish community,
They suffered as well.
Do you think that this is the only card that Trudeau has to save face in the Liberal Party by extraditing this individual to be prosecuted for his crimes?
No. It's not an idea that came from him, right? In an ideal world, I'm honestly blown away by the story. I don't even know what to think of it.
It's hard to process, and it's already been over a week that it's happened, right? I mean, I think that some people are still not realizing the gravity of this situation. They're just like, oh yeah, that's just an old man. No, if you do any research about the history of the unit that this individual is associated with, the disgusting things that they did during the war, it is nothing to turn a blind eye to.
But I will say, to play devil's advocate, there were a lot of SS members who were there because they had no other choice. It was a kill or kill be situation. Not to sympathize before anybody pops off and you're a Nazi sympathizer. There was a lot of people who had guns to their heads, right?
War is war. War is war, right?
What is the context for his Medal of Honor? Like, did he become an informant? Did he help?
No. He didn't receive a Medal of Honor. He was just honored.
He was
in front of Parliament.
Right.
To be quite frank with you, he volunteered for this unit. So this is different from enrolling or being drafted.
Right.
This was a volunteer situation where he volunteered to be part of that unit, and he knew very well what he was getting himself into.
Dude, I think you should pay for your crimes.
I think you should pay for your crimes too.
If you're 105, you got to pay your dues, man.
You got to pay your dues. I think the only thing that our government should be focusing on right now is doing the right thing and correcting this gaffe by making sure that they put additional safeguards in place to ensure that the Prime Minister's office is doing its due diligence before allowing anybody into the House of Commons.
Yeah, it's a big goof.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, though, let us know in the comments below what you think. We'd love to hear from you. Moving on to the next topic of what's trending, Lex, and this is something, ladies and gentlemen, that's hitting our backyard here in Quebec, and it's the homeless situation. Now, keep in mind, this is happening all across the country, but I've taken an opportunity to do a little bit of research, all right, about this particular issue. And the one thing that I can't wrap my mind around is how our provincial government can allow so many people to purchase property and flip it and turn it into an Airbnb. When I did a search online, ladies and gentlemen, there were over 1,146 units that were available for rental.
That's a lot, man.
Temporary rental, right?
Talk about a saturated market.
Yeah. But what you really have to be worried about is all the people who were supposed to be living in those homes, where are they living now? We have individuals in the ages of 25 to 55 and 65 who are homeless and on the street. I used to work in the old port at a call center company, which wasn't too far from the old brewery mission. And there was an individual who was walking by one day and asked for a couple bucks for a cup of coffee. And I said, no problem. I bought him a coffee. And I said, would you mind standing here and talking with me for a few moments? And he said, sure. I said, tell me your story. He's like, well, I was a tenured professor at McGill University, and I'm homeless now. My wife died a couple years ago. I'm unable to afford the house that I'm living in. I don't have any family members. I don't have any children. So I stay in a shelter. That broke my heart, man. A university professor, a tenured university professor, homeless. Now we have young adults, all right, who are coming from maybe troubled backgrounds, who don't feel safe in the place that they were brought up in, who did have an opportunity to move out on their own. But because of our current state, economically, and because of inflation, and because of the cost of living, these individuals are now turning to the streets because they have nowhere else to go.
That's rough, man.
I mean, it's devastating. Like, so I grew up in a neighborhood where neighbors left their doors unlocked. You could leave your kid with your neighbor, you know, You could ask your neighbor for a cup of coffee or a cup of sugar. All right. They never hid behind the sofa when you came knocking at the door. Times have changed, man. We are no longer living in what I thought was the most comfortable era to be brought up in.
No, times are definitely hard, man.
Yeah.
Times are definitely hard. I was just out in Vancouver this summer, and the homeless situation there is scary.
East
spooky.
Hastings Boulevard.
Yeah.
You seen it?
I have. It's crazy. Look at LA. You know, LA looks like Mad Max. It's just, you know, I feel for these people. I know a lot of people don't have any sympathy or compassion for them. You know, they just view them and deem them as bums. But these
or some people will even say
Right.
it was a result of their poor decision making, right?
It
the way
could
you
be.
spent your money, you know, what you did with your life. But I can agree with that statement. But I can also agree that times are very tough right now.
Times are hard.
I know a woman who is 52 years old. She moved out when she was 12 years old by herself. And this was a while back. But for 40 years, she was able to be independent. Now she's moving back in her kid's home because she can't afford to live or to pay rent. So, you know, what do we got to do to let our provincial governments know that you need to put a stop to this selling properties and allowing people to flip them into Airbnb properties so that they can be flipped for a huge amount of profit, might I add, at the end of the year, right? Whatever that property owner would have received in income from rent is nothing compared to the rental revenue that they get by renting them out as Airbnbs, right? Because again, some people are coming in for a week, some people are coming in for 2, maybe a month at a time, right? But they're flipping that property, making so much profit, right? So they're benefiting while some of our citizens are suffering on the street. Ladies and gentlemen, I really want to, you know, I really want to encourage each and every one of you to address this problem head on and encourage you to write a letter to your local MPs, letting them know that things need to change and it's not okay.
I was just going to add to that. You know, you mentioned Pierre Poilievre a couple minutes ago, and something he's trying to work on. What it seems he's trying to work on is to put a block on foreign investments in terms of like real estate.
Yes.
You get a lot of people coming in from China, certain other countries with big money, just buying up properties and, you know, shooting up the value of homes to a point where it's like the average Canadian cannot afford it.
Exactly.
Cannot afford it.
We need to put a stop to that.
We need to put a stop to that. That's another thing. Because, I mean, personally, we don't own a house right now. We're renting. And it's just like with the way the market's going, it's like, dude, we're better off renting.
And
this
the
is
thing
crazy.
is, like, you've got 2 children.
Two children.
And so a couple years ago, even Mr. Wonderful would have said, I don't promote buying a house unless you have a family. Right. And if you think about it, you know, I know the profession that you're in, and I know that it's an honest profession. You make pretty good money doing it. And even that, you don't have a home because you're seeing the prices. It's not affordable.
It's very
So I'm
discouraging.
going to ask you this question, Lex. If things don't change soon, what's the landscape going to be like for your children growing up?
Exponentially worse. It's going to be exponentially worse.
So how do we prepare the next generation for the next
it's like you said,
generation of challenges that are coming?
Vote correctly, because clearly, you know, the way we've been voting, and that's something I wanted to piggyback off of earlier, is like a lot of times people are voting because of what their parents used to vote for and what their grandparents used to vote for, and they don't do any research. But it's like clearly we're in this position because of that negligence, right? The way we've been voting is not working. Look at our current environment. It's unsustainable for the honest, hardworking man and woman who make actually great salaries and still can't afford a home or rent. It's just change your vote. Do some research. See who has your priorities
and your
as,
best
as their
interests.
own. Yeah, and exactly. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it's just, you know, make your vote count. Do your research.
But you know what? We've heard so much in the news, you know, about election interference.
Yeah.
You know, I'm seeing a lot of people, even in my immediate circle, losing faith in voting because they feel as though that we're no longer in a democracy, right? They feel as though that the democracy that we have today is just a facade. It doesn't, the person that you're voting for, you know, might not necessarily be the person that's picked. I mean, I don't know what I don't know, but I pray to God that that's not the case.
Keep voting anyways. the minute you give up your right to vote, they're gonna capitalize off that. They'll take advantage of that. You guys don't want to vote anymore. They continue to watch voting decline. Eventually, we're just gonna be a dictatorship. Whatever we says goes.
Exactly.
When you guys had the opportunity to vote, you didn't. So it's like we're gonna take a charge now.
We have to take accountability.
Even if you're despairing and you're skeptical and you feel like very cynical about the voting system, it's understandable, right? Because voter fraud has been a topic for the longest time. It's a rumor that's not going away. So there's got to be a grain of truth to that somewhere. But keep voting.
Yeah. You know what I'm going to say though? I think that perhaps if we introduced a new tool, all right, to be able to track the voters a little bit better, right? And the votes a little bit better. And what I mean by that, ladies and gentlemen, is perhaps the introduction of blockchain technology in our voting system, whereby every eligible voter has the ability to download a voting app on their mobile device.
You don't like mail-in ballots?
I don't like mail-in ballots. And to be quite honest with you, I don't like going to the local gymnasium either and filling out a ballot and putting it in a box because I don't know what happens to it after.
It just seems very archaic.
Yeah, and blockchain technology was literally built with the purpose of transparency, right? Being able to track, purchases, being able to track activity and transactions and things of that nature.
I feel like us as citizens should have a right to see what's happening
1,000%
with the votes.
1,000%. And I think the only way that can be accomplished is through blockchain technology, because again, that information can be made accessible publicly. Votes can be tallied and counted in front of the public, right? Right now, I mean, we're investing a lot of our trust and confidence in the current system, all right, about counting ballots, right? But at the end of the day, there got to be some malicious people behind there going, no. I've seen his name too many times where we're going to count it under someone else's name. I don't know. I might be speaking completely ignorant here because I don't know what I don't know, never been involved in the process. But, I'm seeing a lot of people losing confidence in the voting system. I think this might be something that could benefit us greatly. But ladies and gentlemen, let us know in the comments below what you think. We'd really love to hear from you.
Sometimes I wish you had an hour, brother.
I know, man. I know. And I don't think we're going to make it through the entire show today. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do one topic of pet peeves and then one topic of the great debate. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, moving on to our next segment, it's what peeves me off. Lex, I don't know if this bothers you or not. Leaving someone on red. Or being left on red.
Okay, so when you send somebody a text, you see that they saw it, but they don't reply.
Yes.
Okay, why does that bother you?
It doesn't bother me.
Oh, it doesn't bother you?
No, it doesn't bother me.
But it bothers people.
It bothers people. Like I've literally had conversations with people who are losing their SHIT because they didn't get a reply back in a timely manner.
Listen, man, my golden rule and philosophy when it comes to text messaging is they answer when they answer. People got jobs, they got kids, they're at the gym, they're doing groceries. When they answer, they will answer. And if they don't, chances are you'll see this person again. And if it's important, you guys will hash it out.
You know what? I'm thinking, Lex, that people are putting too much faith in text messaging
big time.
when it relates to urgent matters. Guys, I don't know, man. I grew up, I'm not shy to pick up a phone. I will pick up a phone. I'll talk your ear off till the cows come home, all right?
Yeah.
So when I look to my friend and I say, hey, can you call this person? Ask them where they are because I'm in the middle of something.
And then they shoot a text.
And then I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Are you like, seriously, time is of an essence here. I don't have the patience to wait.
Or the text arguments.
Oh my, paragraphs.
I watch my wife do that sometimes.
Paragraphs. Paragraphs.
Yeah, novels. Bibles.
It's too much.
Encyclopedias.
It's too much. But ladies and gentlemen, if you're one of those individuals who is peeved off by somebody not reading your text message,
let it go.
Let it go. We don't know what's going on with their lives, and they're not going to drop everything they're doing to respond to you. And if it's an emergency, pick up the phone and call. It's not that hard.
But you know what? Sometimes for transparency's sake, sometimes I'll get a text. I'm just not in the mood to text, man. I'm an 80s baby. Sometimes I don't feel that urgency to just reply immediately because it's like become such a norm now. Sometimes it's just like I see it, I'll put it down, I'll get to it. If it's urgent, of course, I'll reply right away.
But I relate 1,000% because even though smartphones have evolved and they've got these quick responses that you can select, right?
Yeah.
I don't even use that. I don't care to use it, to be quite honest with you. It's the responses that they offer feel disingenuous. So I'm just like, It's not my words. I don't mean them.
not
I'd rather
how you
not
would
press
phrase
the
it.
button. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But to be quite honest with you, look, we get caught up in things on the day to day, right? And I don't really believe it's with malicious intent that they're not being responded to in the minute. I think we should give the person receiving the message the benefit of the doubt. They may be busy. You know what? Sometimes I get so caught up in my work. Someone called me. I said, I'll call you back in 15 minutes. The whole day goes by. You know, I just had so much going on. Now, granted, I feel bad. I gave him my word. I said, I'd call back in 15 minutes. So by all means, slap me on the wrist for that, right? But at the end of the day, folks, let's not put so much weight to read text messages and not receiving.
Hey, listen,
anything
we give a lot of slack to politicians who constantly gaffe. We can give a little bit of slack to our friends who might have something going on behind the scenes.
Just a little bit, guys. It'll go a very, very long way. All right, moving on to the next one. You know what? I'll throw one more in there in the pet peeves. This one kind of peeves me off. Last minute pit stops. All right, and let me give some context. All right, I'm the type of individual who's very particular about my time. I know I've said this before. I like to know where I'm going, when I'm leaving, when I'm going to get there, right? I've got it all calculated out, Rain Man, all in my brain, right? But then at the very last minute, my lovely, lovely wife will ask me, can we stop and pick up something to drink? And it's always out of the way. I mean,
it's never the Tim Hortons right around the corner.
It's always the freaking opposite direction of where I got to go. All right. No, I love my wife. I'll do anything for her. I stop, but it peeves me off. Because you know what? Really, all it really takes is for you to tell me half an hour before, I'd like to get something to drink. At least give me an opportunity to put it into the agenda of things that we're doing today.
That's
right?
one thing I'll give my wife credit for. If we have somewhere to go, she'll tell me beforehand, let's get a coffee on the road. Or I'll tell her, let's get a coffee on the road. So it's not like we're on the road and boom, we're heading to our destination. Oh, let's get a coffee. Oh, no, man. Beforehand. Let's hash it out beforehand.
You know, maybe I'm just being a little too particular, all right? Maybe I'm just a little hard-headed and too set in my ways, but that's definitely something that peeves me off. Ladies and gentlemen, let us know in the comments below what peeves you off. We'd love to hear from you. Excuse me. All right, Lex. Moving on to the great debate, ladies and gentlemen. This was a topic that was brought up by Lex, and I decided to expand on it a little bit. So the topic today, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Tate, Johnny Zerka, Jordan Peterson. Love him or hate him?
Yeah, the middle dude, I don't know him.
All right.
I don't know him.
Start off with Andrew Tate.
Andrew Tate. This might get me in some hot water.
Oh.
But I fucking like the dude.
It's the raw, real show.
It's the raw, real. I'll keep it raw. I'll keep it real. I like Andrew Tate. Listen, would I take his advice in every single aspect of my life? No. But I respect his grind. I respect his hustle. And like in this current climate of what appears to be a fucking sideshow, I mean, he's talking sense. He's talking a lot of sense to me. His diagnosis of what's wrong with society seems to be spot on, but his prescription, so to speak, doesn't always work. It's a little brash.
Yes.
His background is a little questionable. I mean, he was doing the webcamming stuff.
Not illegal.
But I mean,
not illegal.
And if he's not going to do it, someone else is going to do it. And I mean, if you're faced with desperation and you're trying to get out of a hole, I mean, I wouldn't, hold it against you. So it's.
You know, I think Andrew Tate does have a lot to offer.
Yeah.
But I think that gets masked with a lot of the shit that he puts out there. All right. And I mean, you know, here's the thing. Like I've got nothing against, what you do in your own home, right? But I don't know, just some of the rhetoric that he uses just to me seems like it crosses the line, and he tries to justify it in the best way possible, right? But it's just painting the impression of one human being having control over another human being, right?
Yeah.
The way that's coming out is rubbing people off the wrong way.
Yeah.
What I do appreciate is his business acumen. All right.
Very good business acumen.
I was a student of Hustlers University.
Were you?
I was.
Wow.
I was. I took a trading course because I wanted to learn crypto trading.
And did it help?
It did. Absolutely. It helped. But then when he got into, whatever bad light he was affiliated with,
That's a whole episode
I
on its
backed
own.
off. But again, I still took valuable lessons from those courses, all right? Because it's not him himself teaching these courses. He's got professionals,
he's got a whole team
of professionals who have been doing this for years, all right? And they're really teaching skills that aren't being taught in school, you know? And I think that they should, because this will be the new way of making money for the younger generation.
These are very valuable
So that's
lessons.
the part that I like. About his personal lifestyle, about his personal choices, listen, we don't align on everything. You know, I do approve his message of making sure that, you know, you're taking care of your body, you're taking care of your mind.
Yes.
You're only doing things that are adding value to your life. Those are things that I can get behind. So another individual that I'd like to discuss is Johnny Zerka. And I know you're not too familiar with him, but I find he's been on the internet for many years now. But I find he was taking a similar path that Andrew Tate had taken in the beginning, right? Of being introduced into social media. He says a lot of fucking shit that I'm just like, no. First and foremost,
I gotta go see this guy.
First and foremost, let's just start off by saying that he was born and raised a Muslim, all right? He's converted to Christianity, all right? And he's a die-hard Christian, all right? He goes around talking about, you know, how Jesus is God and he's the only God that ever existed and all that stuff. And that's not the stuff that I take issue with. I don't take issue with that. It's the things he says about wanting to sleep with 18-year-old girls because they're virgins and they're fresh meat. And he talks about his experiences using drugs, or he openly says, you know, he's taking cocaine before he's coming on the podcast. And you don't want sober Johnny, you want this Johnny. Like, what kind of message are you sending to the youth? It is highly irresponsible, right? And parents, I'm letting you know this now. If you don't know the name, look it up, do the research yourself, because you're going to need to safeguard your children from this particular individual. You don't want your child mimicking anything from this person.
Well, that's the negative effect that Andrew Tate has, is he's influencing, yes, a lot of people who have the capability to discern what he's saying and pick and choose what they need. And then you have a group of lost individuals who don't have any identity of their own and they're searching for anything. And unfortunately, as you know, people like you and me could take the good, they're going to take the good with the bad. And they just regurgitate it into something that's completely monstrous.
And I think that's what his objective is to use those tactics to attract that demographic
Shock
of people.
value.
And you're exploiting them.
Yeah.
And I can't get behind that. All right?
Yeah, that's wicked marketing. That's evil marketing right
Yes,
there. Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree with you. And under the guise of Christianity too, it's just you know, if he's the Christian he says he is, that's pretty blasphemous. So I mean, you know, it's time for him to get his checks and balances.
It literally is. You're coming off as a hypocrite, Mr. Zerka. I gotta say it. Unfortunately, you can do better. The next person I want to talk about is Jordan Peterson, right? And Jordan Peterson has, you know, obviously been all across social media. He's received a lot of praise. He's also received a lot of hate as a result of his position on certain social topics, right? Relating to gender ideology and the use of pronouns. But the one thing I have to say about Jordan Peterson is I really do feel as though he's an individual who wants to see people happy.
Yeah.
You know, I think that the topic of using gender pronouns that he was fighting was that it shouldn't be forced. You shouldn't be forced to use language, right? And it infringes on the freedom of expression, or freedom of speech, however you want to call it. But I think that there was a huge misunderstanding in that, because I've seen a lot of his content. He's got over 1,000 hours or 500 hours of content on YouTube. And, you know, I think the biggest misunderstanding is that Jordan Peterson would not use a student's pronouns if asked. Because he's been asked the question if he would use the preferred pronouns if asked. And he said, of course I would. I don't have an issue. The issue that I have is if you start forcing the language, right? And I know many of you may agree, many of you may disagree, which is why we're going to encourage you to give us your feedback in the comments below, because we want to know how you feel about Mr. Jordan Peterson and his stance on being forced to use language as it relates to the trans community. You know, I do my very best, Lex, to host lives on TikTok and talk about some of these sensitive issues. And I'm trying to really bridge a gap and clear a lot of the misunderstandings. You know, as it related to the protest the other week, you know, a lot of people said it was a great experience because it brought people together. I just saw a lot of hate being slung from one side to another, both sides. You know, none of them were innocent, or none of them were innocent from throwing out hate. They both threw out.
You're gonna have bad apples on any team.
Absolutely. And I'm just trying to curate a place where people from both sides, or from all sides, all races, religions, and all four corners of the globe, to come to a place to have discussions about some of these topics, you know. And so I'll ask you, I'm going to put you on the hot seat. What's your stance on using gender pronouns?
Listen, my feelings aside about the whole entire movement, that's a whole other topic. For the sake of being a kind, compassionate person, if somebody asks me to address them a certain way, I will.
No sweat off your back.
Doesn't hurt me. Do I agree with it? No. It's not my thing. It's not an ideology that I subscribe to. But for the sake of, you know, I mean, this society, this world that we're in is such a mess because of conflict. Why do I want to add to it? You know, it's not gonna destroy my day or deplete my entire
It takes nothing
life
away
force.
from you to make someone feel as though they're being respected, right?
And it, you know, as far as Jordan Peterson goes, simultaneously, I completely get his point. I completely get it. Because it's like we keep moving the goalposts, right? Like, how much further is this going to go? We keep allowing, they keep taking. And then suddenly, like he says, we're like 100 yards down. Wait, how do we get here, right? So it's just, when does it end?
Yeah, I think we need to come to the table collectively, respectively, you know, have discussions, conversations.
Where's the middle ground?
Because, guys, I see it on TikTok all the time.
Yeah.
Content creators are hosting lives, and if I know you don't subscribe, but the landscape itself is very aggressive in the sense that people are literally yelling at each other, they're insulting each other, they're belittling each other.
I see it on Instagram.
You're never going to get closer to the goal of us all being inclusive of one another if we keep treating each other that way.
The classic crabs in a barrel scenario. That's what it is.
1,000%.
That's what it is.
But ladies and gentlemen, let us know what you think in the comments below. Do you love Tate? Do you love Zerka? Do you love Peterson? Or do you hate him?
Do you like Peterson?
I like Peterson.
I like Peterson.
You know, I mean, listen, I don't know him from a hole in the wall, to be honest with you.
I think his heart's in a good place.
And I haven't listened to 500 hours of his content. But there are a lot of things that I can agree with, you know, in terms of how an individual can manage their life and some of the little things that you can do. One change at a time can have such a huge impact. And one of the things that he preaches, and I'm sure people are going to, you know, mock me for it or criticize me for it, but if you're an individual who doesn't make your bed first thing in the morning, try it out for 30 days and tell me how you feel.
Well said.
Try it out.
It's a good way to...
You got nothing to lose. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining. We sincerely appreciate it. Until next week, we love you. God bless you, and have yourselves a wonderful evening.
Good night, y'all.